Well, who doesn't like a good castle? Just take a look at this. Today I'm going to give you my top 5 castles in South Wales. As you can see, it's been a very misty and atmospheric morning here in South Wales, but the sun's trying to break through. Anyway, this is my list, my personal list, and I hope to give you the reasons why I chose these castles, and also I'm going to give you some history and some info about visiting these places as well. All the castles in my list are at least 700 years old, and they've all been used as strongholds to assert power, whether by Welsh princes or Anglo-Norman lords. I haven't included any mansions or country houses, which are sometimes called castles. These are all what I call proper castles. And again, as I mentioned, this is my personal list for various reasons, which I'll go through with you. But when you come and visit Wales, you should make time to come and see at least one of them. So let's get started. I did say my top 5 castles, but I'm going to give you a bonus castle. This one, Ogmore Castle near Bridgend. Well, Ogmore Castle dates from the 12th century and is a simple wooden construction, but in the 13th century it was reinforced in stone. It was part of a network of 3 castles in this area to guard Glamorgan against attacks from the Welsh to the west. And these castles were this one, Ogmore Castle, as well as Ceerphilly Castle and Newcastle in Bridgend. Well, Ogmore Castle was built by William de Londres, one of the legendary 12 Knights of Glamorgan, but the Great Tower, that was built by his son, Maurice de Londres. Personally, I think the ruins of Ogmore Castle, sitting on the banks of the Weni River, are some of the most picturesque ruins in South Wales. And just up the road is Weni Priory. That's worth a visit as well. And that was painted actually by Turner when he visited South Wales. As well as Ogmore, Ceerphilly Castle is worth a visit. There are quite a few of these smaller castles dotted around South Wales, and most of them are free to enter. So if you see one, definitely worth a visit. So the practical stuff. Ogmore Castle is only a few miles from Bridgend town centre. It's got a small car park, which is free, but be careful, it does flood on high tides. And the castle is free to enter, and it's open all year round as well. Like many castles in Wales, it's managed by Cadw, which is the Welsh government agency in charge of looking after many historic sites. So that's Ogmore Castle. Well, the sun's breaking through now, and that's the bonus castle out of the way, Ogmore Castle. Let's start the list properly. And at number 5 is Kidwelly Castle, which dates from the 12th century. Like Ogmore and many castles, it was first constructed in wood, then reinforced in stone. It was a Norman castle, and the invaded Normans were attacked, especially in the early period, by the local Welsh. And one of these attackers was a person I mentioned a few weeks ago in one of my videos, Lord Rhys, and he attacked Kidwelly in 1159. What I like about Kidwelly Castle, many of the towers are still intact and you're allowed to climb them. And if you're a Monty Python fan, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the very first scene in the film, when Arthur emerges through the mist, the castle in front of him is Kidwelly Castle. So, the castle, the practical details. At the moment, it's £6.50 for adults to enter. It's managed by Cadw, I think it's open all year round except Christmas, but I would check on the Cadw website for the up-to-date information. And location, it's in southwest Wales, about 10 miles from Carmarthen. That's number 5, Kidwelly Castle. So I've moved to a shadier part of the castle because the sun has broken through the mist now and it's getting quite bright. But anyway, back to my list. At number 4 is Caerphilly, which dates from the 13th century. And this sits in a dramatic position on a craggy outcrop of rock. And it was actually a site of an earlier Welsh castle, but that was completely demolished to build Caerphilly. The castle was probably built by John Gifford at the end of the 13th century. John Gifford was a baron loyal to Edward I. In the southeast corner of the inner ward, there are steep steps which leads down to a creepy limestone cave. By the way, if you go down there, you will need a torch. Well, Caerphilly was voted by the readers of Countryfile magazine, don't mess with those, as one of the most picturesque ruins in Wales. So where is Caerphilly? It's located about 12 miles north at the end of the M4 on the western side of the Brecon Beacons. It's £6.50 for an adult to enter, and I think it's open all year round except Christmas Day, but I would check on the Caerphilly website for the up-to-date information. So at number 3 is Pembroke Castle. Again, this is a Norman castle dating from the 12th century. It was first built as a simple motte and bailey construction, but the place was acquired by William Marshall, who built the stone structure the remains of we can see today. But this site is important, well, the location is important, and is evidence that the Romans used the site as well. One feature from the Marshall era is the impressive 80-foot high round keep with a stone dome. The castle is built over a natural cavern known as Wogan's Cavern, and you can access that from the castle itself. Well, Pembroke Castle was the birthplace for Henry VII, the first Tudor monarch, and he became king when he defeated Richard III at the Battle of Bosworth Field. Well, Pembroke Castle is located in the town of Pembroke in the far southwest of Wales. At the moment, the entrance fee for an adult is £9.35, but you can spend a few hours at Pembroke Castle. It's quite interesting. Opening times, I think it's open all year round except Christmas, but I would check their website for the up-to-date information and the opening times and things like that. That applies to all these places. Search and get the up-to-date opening times because the hours can vary throughout the year. At number 2, Cardiff Castle. Cardiff Castle has been an important defensive position for nearly 2,000 years. It was a Roman fort from the 1st to the 4th century AD, and the Normans built a wooden motte and bailey structure back in the 11th century, and Rob of Gloucester in the 12th century built the stone keep, which you can still see today. Cardiff Castle was involved in the conflicts between the Anglo-Norman lords and the Welsh, being attacked several times in the 12th century. It was also stormed in 1404 during the revolt by Owen Glyndwr. The castle was transformed in the Victorian era by the 3rd Marquess of Bute, who employed William Burgess to remodel the castle in a Gothic revival style. Well, I did say I wasn't going to include mansions or country houses, but Cardiff Castle is different because the Norman castle and the keep are still there. The Marquis of Bute and his Victorian additions are in the grounds. They're separate. Well, anyway, location. Cardiff Castle is right in the centre of Cardiff. I think it's open all year round except Christmas Day and Boxing Day. and they sometimes have events there as well, so check the website. Definitely worth visiting. So that's my number 2, Cardiff Castle. Just before I get on to number 1, just take a look at this weather. The mist has cleared and the sun's come out. Let's take a look. So at number 1 is Caerphilly Castle. The Welsh didn't build Caerphilly Castle, but they tried pretty hard to knock it down. So in 1268, these Welsh attacks inspired Gilbert de Clare to construct the biggest castle in Wales and second only to Windsor in the UK. It had massive towers, walls and a moat. So to put the size of the castle in perspective, it's 3 times the size of the Principality Stadium in Cardiff. One of the main features is the incredible Leaning Tower, which leans more than the Tower of Pisa. Some people claim it's due to damage after the English Civil War, but there's not really any sign of deliberate damage and was probably caused by subsidence. Well, Caerphilly Castle is only 20 minutes north of Cardiff, and the current adult entry price is £10.10. So just as I'm finishing up in Ogmore Castle, a van's turned up with some workmen from Cadw, the agency in charge of looking after castles in Wales, and I think they're going to do some small jobs around the place and make some noise. So lucky I've just finished. Anyway, those were my top 5 castles in South Wales. If you're local, no doubt you have your own favourites, but if you're visiting, you can't really go wrong with any of them. Anyway, coming up next are some of those castles I mentioned in more detail, and I'll see you in one of those. Bye.